I lived with a liar for 28 years, and I didn't even know it. For almost 3 decades, I thought my family was safe and strong. We shared dinners, birthdays, and secrets. At least I thought we did. But one small moment changed everything. Suddenly, I realized the people I trusted most were hiding something that could tear us apart. In this story, you'll see how I uncovered the truth, what I did when I found out, and how I turned the biggest betrayal of my life into my greatest comeback. If you've ever wondered what happens when the truth finally comes out, keep watching because this is the moment everything changes. My daughter-in-law slept with my husband a week before we signed the divorce papers. I said out loud to no one, just to hear how it sounded. The words felt unreal, like I was saying someone else's story. But it was mine. I am Olivia. And I knew the truth long before they thought I did. The funny part? I never confronted them. I never cried in front of anyone. I never even screamed. I just pretended. They believed I was weak. They thought I was clueless. But every smile I gave, every dinner I cooked, every kind word I spoke, it was all part of the game. Because if they could lie to my face, I could lie right back. And I would make sure they never saw it coming. Richard and I were married for 28 years. Almost 3 decades of building a home, raising a son, and becoming strangers under the same roof. They say love fades slowly. But in my case, it rotted. It started with silence, long nights of eating dinner without talking, sleeping back to back, forgetting birthdays. We told people we were splitting because of irreconcilable differences, but that was just the pretty bow we wrapped around a bomb. Our son, Daniel, didn't ask many questions. He had his own life now, married to Emily, a bright, bubbly girl who used to call me Mom and bring me tulips every spring. I adored her, at least I used to. I even told Richard once, she's the daughter I never had. If only I knew then what I know now. The moment that shook me was so small, most would have missed it. We were having dinner, just the 4 of us. It was quiet, calm. Emily laughed at one of Richard's old jokes, and I looked up just in time to see it. The look. It was fast, maybe 2 seconds. But their eyes met like magnets. Not a look of family or even friendly. It was warm, guilty, familiar. The kind of look 2 people share when they think no one is watching. That was the moment something deep inside me whispered, watch them. Carefully. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Stress. Divorce. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. But over the next few weeks, the signs became louder, clearer, impossible to ignore. Emily started dressing differently. More makeup, new clothes, fancy perfume I'd never smelled before. Richard, who had once spent nights falling asleep in his recliner, was suddenly working late again. And whenever he came home, Emily would avoid eye contact. Still, I smiled. I played the part of the tired wife, just ready to move on. But inside, I was wide awake. Watching. Waiting. Then one night, I walked past Richard's office and heard him on the phone. His voice was low and soft. He laughed in a way I hadn't heard in years. And then he said it. I miss you already. I didn't need to hear more. I didn't need to see a name on the screen. My gut already knew who he was talking to. The next morning, I sat across from my best friend Jenna at our favorite cafe. I told her everything. Her eyes widened, her coffee forgotten. You can't let this go, she said. You have to know for sure. Before you sign anything. I nodded. Because she was right. If I was going to end this marriage, I wanted to end it on my terms. Not as a victim, but as a woman who saw the truth and did something about it. So, I went home that evening and walked straight to the guest house, the little space Richard claimed he used as an office to focus. I hid a small camera on the bookshelf behind the clock. I looked around the quiet room and whispered, let's see what you're really doing when I'm not around. And that's when everything started. But what I saw later on that camera, that changed everything forever. After I placed that camera in the guest house, everything in me changed. I wasn't just a wife waiting for divorce papers anymore. I became a silent hunter. I knew what I was looking for, and deep down, I was already sure of what I'd find. But knowing and seeing are 2 very different things. Each day felt longer now. Every good morning from Richard sounded faker. Every hi mom from Emily made my skin crawl. I didn't flinch, though. I had to keep pretending. The stronger the lie they performed, the stronger mine had to be. Richard stopped sleeping at home completely 2 days after I placed the camera. He said he was working on a high-stakes deal and needed full concentration. I just nodded, handed him his travel mug, and wished him luck. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel sad. I felt calm, almost dangerous. Emily started coming by more often, even when Daniel wasn't home. She'd drop off leftovers, stay to chat, and act like the perfect daughter-in-law. Her makeup was thicker now. Her perfume, something expensive and sweet, lingered in my house long after she left. But it wasn't just the smell. It was the way she looked at me, too cheerful, too eager, as if trying to cover up something rotten underneath. I kept smiling, offering her tea, listening to her talk about weekend plans and decorating ideas. Meanwhile, my thoughts were already back in a guest house, wondering what the camera had caught. A few nights later, I couldn't sleep. My stomach turned every time I closed my eyes. So I slipped on my robe and went downstairs, telling myself I'd check the footage just to put my mind at ease. But I knew better. I grabbed the camera, locked myself in my bedroom, and sat on the floor, staring at the little screen. At first, it was nothing. Richard coming in, placing papers on the table, stretching his back, checking his phone. Normal. Boring. Safe. Then, at exactly 10:14 p.m., the guest house door opened again. It was Emily. She looked around quickly, then stepped inside. She wasn't carrying food. She wasn't dressed casually. She was wearing a black silk blouse and red lipstick. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear the sound on the video. Richard smiled when he saw her. He stood, walked up to her, and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. A long, slow, too comfortable kiss. Like they'd done it 100 times before. I dropped the device. My hands were shaking. But my face didn't move at all. There it was. The truth. I had it in full color, time-stamped, undeniable. The woman I had welcomed into my family, the woman my son had chosen to build a life with, was kissing my husband. My soon-to-be ex-husband. A laugh escaped my lips, short and bitter. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was smiling. Because now I had everything I needed. The next day, I met Jenna at her place. I showed her the video. Her mouth dropped open, her hands flew to her face, and she kept whispering, "Oh my God, Olivia, oh my God." But I just sat there, quiet and calm. She asked me what I was going to do. "Are you going to confront them?" I shook my head.
"No," I said.
"I'm going to pretend I don't know. Just like they've been pretending. And then I'm going to make them regret every lie they ever told me." Jenna looked stunned. "You're scaring me," she said with a nervous smile. But I wasn't trying to scare her. I was focused. I went home that night with a plan forming in my mind. I didn't know every detail yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This story wasn't going to end with me signing divorce papers quietly. No, this story was just beginning. And I was going to write the ending myself. I didn't sleep that night. After watching that footage, how could I? My body lay still, but my mind was a storm. I kept seeing Emily's hands in Richard's hair, his lips on hers, the easy way they touched, as if they hadn't just betrayed two people who trusted them with everything. But the strangest thing was, I felt calm. Not broken. Not defeated.
Calm.
I wasn't the same woman they thought I was. The Olivia they remembered. The one who kept peace, who swallowed pain, who forgave easily. She was gone. In her place was someone sharper. Someone dangerous. And she was wide awake. The next morning, Richard walked in like nothing had changed. Kissed my cheek. Poured himself coffee. Asked if I needed anything from the store. I smiled. "Just eggs," I said. "We're out." I kept my tone soft, like I hadn't just watched him destroy everything we built. But inside, I was burning. And Emily? Oh, she showed up that afternoon. Brought lemon bars, said she baked too many and thought I'd enjoy some. She even asked if I wanted to have lunch together soon, just the two of us. I nodded, thanked her, even complimented her necklace. It was gold, simple, with a small red stone. I had seen it before. Years ago. Richard once bought one just like it for a woman he used to work with. I remembered because it was during one of the coldest winters of our marriage. I remembered the receipt I'd found, the silence when I asked about it, the lie he told so easily. It was for a client's wife. I let it go back then.
But now?
Now I knew better. That necklace wasn't new. It wasn't a gift from Daniel. It was a leftover from a past affair, now passed down like a cursed heirloom to Emily. I wondered if she even knew. I could feel the pieces clicking together, forming a picture uglier than I ever imagined. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had roots.
History. Pattern.
And still I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready to strike yet. Instead, I spent the week gathering more proof. I printed stills from the camera footage. Screenshotted texts from Richard's synced cloud account. He never changed the password. He was always lazy like that. The messages were worse than I expected. Filthy. Shameless.
Sent while I was just a room away.
He called her baby, told her he wished they could run away together. Emily replied with hearts. Soon, once this is over, she wrote. This? They meant me. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was an obstacle. That night, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror and said aloud, let them think they've won. And I meant it. The next day, I met with my lawyer, Greg. He was shocked when I told him I didn't want to speed up the divorce. I wanted to delay it just by a few weeks. When he asked why, I slid the photos across the table. His eyes widened. Do you want to go after him? He asked. I nodded slowly. For everything. Adultery. Misuse of joint funds. Emotional distress. Hidden finances. We'd build a case so strong it would bury him. And I wasn't doing it out of rage. I was doing it for every quiet moment I had swallowed. Every lonely night. Every lie I forgave. Greg leaned back and smiled. You've been planning this, haven't you? I smiled too. Let's just say I've been pretending very well. As I left his office, a thought struck me. They believed they were winning because I hadn't exploded. They thought silence meant weakness. But silence, when used right, is the sharpest blade of all. When I got home, I found a message on my phone. It was from Emily. Hey Mom, just checking if we're still on for dinner Sunday? I stared at the screen for a long time.
Dinner. Yes.
That could work. I replied. Of course, sweetheart. I'm looking forward to it. Let's make it special, just the four of us. One last family dinner. Because by then, I'd have everything ready. One table. For chairs. Secrets simmering like stew. And one unforgettable surprise they'd never see coming.
Dinner.
That single word echoed in my head like a warning bell, or maybe a countdown. I had told Emily, let's make it special. Just the four of us. And I meant it, but not in the way she thought. Now that I had the truth, text messages, camera footage, financial records, I didn't need to scream or throw anything. No, I just needed to smile a little longer. Pretend a little harder. Play my role until the final scene. And I was ready to act better than I ever had in my life. I spent the next few days becoming everything they expected of me. I praised Emily's cooking again, complimented her outfits, even asked for her opinion on flower arrangements. She beamed at me like I was her best friend. It made my stomach turn, but I didn't let it show. Richard stayed in the guest house most nights now. I stopped asking where he was. That only made him relax more. He thought I was over it, that I had accepted everything and moved on. But I hadn't moved on. I was moving through, right through the middle of their lies, and into the heart of something they could never escape. Behind closed doors, I was working. I printed every text and email and filed them neatly. I transferred all shared bank statements to a USB drive. I met with Greg twice more to update the paperwork. I even updated my will. Quietly.
Carefully.
I made sure every dollar, every asset, and every detail was protected, far away from Richard's reach. And certainly out of Emily's. Jenna was the only one who knew the full picture. "Olivia," she whispered during one of our coffee meetings, "you're terrifying in the most graceful way." I just laughed, not because it was funny, but because she was right. By Saturday, the night before the big dinner, I was ready. I walked into my bedroom and looked around. 28 years in this house. So many memories. Some sweet, many sour. But after tomorrow, this wouldn't be my home anymore.
And that was okay.
I wasn't trying to save what we had. I was preparing to leave it behind, but not quietly. That night, I pulled out a beautiful scrapbook I had designed over the years. Pictures of our family, birthdays, holidays, trips. But I added something new to the back pages, still images from the camera. Screenshots of the texts. Pictures of credit card receipts, hotels, dinners, little gifts. A perfect blend of sweet memories and the destruction they caused behind my back. I wrapped it in tissue paper, tied it with a ribbon, and wrote on the tag, "To Emily, so you'll never forget us." The trap was ready. Sunday arrived like any other day, except I knew it wouldn't be. I woke early, made breakfast, even ironed the linen tablecloth we hadn't used in years. I cooked Richard's favorite roast and Emily's favorite pie. Everything was perfect, just like they wanted. When they arrived, Daniel walked in first, smiling. Poor Daniel. Still blind. Still trying to keep the peace. Emily followed, cheerful and clueless. Richard was last. He didn't even meet my eyes. We sat at the table. The small talk was light. Fake smiles. Forks clinking. I could feel the weight of the lies in the room, thick like fog. After dinner, I stood up. "Before we clear the table," I said gently, "I have something I'd like to say." They all looked up. "I just wanted to say thank you," I continued, "for everything. For these years. For this family. For the strength to let go." Emily smiled, maybe thinking she had won. That she'd gotten away with it. Richard looked relieved. I reached behind me and picked up the wrapped gift. "Emily," I said, handing it to her, "I made this for you." She looked surprised. "For me?" I nodded. "Open it. Please." She untied the ribbon, pulled away the tissue, and flipped through the pages. At first, her face was soft, smiling at family photos, happy memories. Then she got to the last section. Her hands froze. Her face changed color. Richard leaned over, trying to see. Then his face changed too. What is this?" Emily stuttered. I folded my hands calmly. "It's what you've both been hiding. Or what you thought you were hiding." Daniel looked confused. "What's going on?" I turned to him slowly, my voice steady. "Your wife and your father have been having an affair. And not just recently." He stared at me. "That's not possible." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The proof was in her shaking hands. In Richard's silence. And in the next moment, when Emily dropped the scrapbook and whispered, "I can explain." I just looked at her and smiled. "You'll have plenty of time for that, Emily. But not here." When Emily dropped the scrapbook, the sound of it hitting the floor felt louder than anything I had heard in weeks. Pages spread like shattered glass across the hardwood floor, photos, text messages, receipts, pieces of the truth they could no longer run from. She bent down quickly, trying to gather them, but her hands were trembling so much that she couldn't even pick up a single page without fumbling. Richard's face was pale. His mouth opened, then closed again. He had no words. And Daniel, my sweet Daniel. He just stared. What is this?" he asked again, barely above a whisper. I turned to him slowly. I didn't rush. I wanted every word to land exactly where it needed to. "It's the truth," I said. "The truth your father and your wife didn't want you to know." Emily looked up at me. "Olivia, please." I raised a hand.
No.
"You don't get to speak right now." The air in the room had changed. No more pretending. No more fake smiles. No more polite small talk. I walked around the table, my heels echoing in the silence, and stood beside Daniel. I gently placed a folder in front of him. "This is everything, Daniel."
Dates.
Messages. Locations. I didn't want to believe it either, but it's all there. He slowly opened the folder and flipped through it. His hands didn't shake, but his eyes filled with tears. Silent ones. The kind that hurt more than anything loud ever could. Richard finally stood up, pushing his chair back hard. "This is insane," he said, his voice cracking. "You're trying to destroy this family." "No." I cut in, turning to face him fully. "You destroyed it. I'm just showing everyone what you did when you thought no one was watching." His jaw clenched. He looked at Daniel, then back at me. "You planned this." I smiled. Every second of it. And that's when I delivered the final blow. Calm, collected, and sharper than anything he could have prepared for. "I've already filed charges," I said. "Adultery. Misuse of marital funds.
Fraud.
You used our joint account to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, and gifts for your affair. That's theft, Richard. My lawyer will be in touch." Emily gasped. "Wait, charges? You can't." "Oh, I can," I said, locking eyes with her. "And I have." I turned to Daniel one last time. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know this is a lot, but I needed you to see the truth for yourself." He didn't say a word. He stood up slowly and walked toward the door. Then he turned back to Emily. "Don't come home tonight." That was the moment I knew everything had changed. The silence in the room said more than any scream ever could. But I wasn't done. I reached into my bag and pulled out one last envelope. "Richard," I said, handing it to him. "You'll want to read that. It's a letter from my lawyer. It includes a request for full financial disclosure, witness statements, and notification of a formal court hearing." He stared at it like it was poison. Then, I walked over to Emily, still crouched by the scrapbook. She looked up at me with eyes full of panic. "Please," she whispered, "don't ruin my life." I tilted my head and replied softly, "You already did that to yourself. I'm just making sure the world knows it." The room was still. No one moved. The truth had landed like a bomb. And now they had to sit in the ruins. I turned away and picked up my wine glass. "A toast," I said, raising it slightly. "To family, forgiveness, and freedom." No one responded. I sipped the wine slowly. Then I walked out of the dining room, down the hall, and into my room. And for the first time in years, I locked the door, not because I was scared, but because I was finally in control. But this wasn't over yet. The fallout was only beginning. What would Daniel do now? How would Richard respond? And what would happen when this affair went public? Because yes, I had one more move left. And it was already in motion. When I locked my bedroom door that night, I expected the silence. But I didn't expect the tears to come so quickly. Not for Richard. Not even for Emily. But for Daniel. My son. My baby. I had done what I needed to do. I'd shattered the lie they built, torn off the mask they wore. But in doing so, I'd also broken something inside him. And that hurt more than I thought it would. Still, I knew it had to happen. The next morning, the house was quiet. Richard was gone. I didn't know where, and I didn't care. Emily's car was missing too. But Daniel's car was still in the driveway. I found him in the guest room. Bags packed, eyes red, sitting on the edge of the bed. He didn't look up when I walked in. "How long did you know?" he asked quietly. I sat beside him. Not too close. "A few weeks. Maybe longer if I'm honest with myself." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed you to see it with your own eyes," I said. "If I had just told you, you wouldn't have believed me. You love her. And you trusted him." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "I feel like a fool." "No," I said gently. "You were loyal. That's not foolish. That's rare." He nodded slowly. "I'm moving out. I don't want to see either of them." I reached over and took his hand. "You don't have to explain anything. I'm proud of you." That same day, the media storm began. I didn't leak the footage, but someone did. Maybe someone in the law office. Or maybe Emily, panicked and desperate, tried to control the story and ended up exposing it instead. Either way, it was everywhere. Headlines. Articles. CEO caught in family affair scandal. Photos of Richard and Emily at hotels. Dates, timestamps, everything. It spread like wildfire. Clients started pulling back. His company's board demanded explanations.
And Richard?
He disappeared for days. Jenna called me the next morning, half laughing, half shocked. "You really lit a fire, Olivia." "I didn't light it," I replied. "They did. I just handed them the match." By the end of the week, Richard's name was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Shareholders were furious. His business partners were distancing themselves. And rumors began swirling about financial misconduct. That part wasn't my doing. But I didn't stop it either. Emily called me 3 times. I didn't answer. She left long voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please call me back." I didn't. She had her chance to speak when she stood in my house, lying to my face and smiling like nothing was wrong. Now she could sit in silence. The same silence she gave me when she kissed my husband behind my back. Daniel officially filed for separation a week later. The papers were clean, fast.
He didn't want alimony.
He just wanted out. He moved into a small apartment near the lake. We had lunch together once a week. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just sat in silence. But we were healing, slowly, quietly, together. Meanwhile, my divorce went exactly as planned. Greg was brilliant, ruthless, but professional. With all the evidence I had, the judge granted me the majority of the marital assets, the house, and long-term alimony. Richard didn't fight back. He couldn't. He had nothing left to stand on. Emily? She walked away with nothing. No support. No home. No money. The last I heard, she was working at a diner 2 towns over, living with a cousin and barely making ends meet.
It was poetic in a way.
The girl who wanted more ended up with far less. Jenna said it best over coffee one morning. "You didn't break, Liv. You orchestrated." And she was right. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't crumble. I stayed calm, quiet, and patient. Because some battles aren't won with noise. They're won with proof. With planning. With truth delivered in silence. But even after all that, after the court, the headlines, the betrayals, I knew one thing. It wasn't revenge that healed me. It was knowing that I never let their darkness turn me into something I'm not. And yet something in me had changed. The question was, what would I do with that strength now? The courthouse was quiet that morning. No cameras. No noise. No headlines. Just the soft shuffle of papers, the quiet clicks of shoes on polished floors, and the moment I had waited for. Not with anger, but with peace. The final divorce hearing. I sat at the long wooden table with Greg beside me. Across from us, Richard looked like a ghost of who he used to be. The expensive suit couldn't hide the stress written across his face. His shoulders were sunken, his eyes dull. There was no Emily by his side now. Just silence. I signed the papers with a steady hand. Not shaking.
Not second-guessing.
Just steady. The judge nodded and confirmed it. The divorce was final. 28 years officially closed in a few strokes of ink. Greg leaned over and whispered, "You did it." But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like letting go. I stepped outside the courthouse and looked up at the sky. The clouds had parted. The sun was warm on my face. I breathed in deeply, like my lungs were waking up after holding their breath for years. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Jenna met me outside with 2 coffees and a hug. "How do you feel?" she asked.
"Free," I said.
"Not bitter," she teased. I smiled.
"No."
"Just done." She grinned and handed me the coffee. "Then let's never talk about them again." We didn't. Not that day. Not for many days after. Because the truth was, I had already said goodbye to Richard and Emily the moment I saw who they really were. This was just the paperwork. But there was still one more goodbye to give. Not to a person, but to a version of myself. The Olivia who stayed quiet, who tried to fix everything alone, who swallowed her pain to keep peace. I said goodbye to her that night. I took a walk through the house, touching old furniture, family photos, memories that felt both warm and heavy. I knew I wouldn't live there much longer.
I didn't want to.
Too many shadows. I stood in the bedroom, once ours, now just mine, and whispered to the air, "Thank you for what you taught me. But I'm done carrying you." I folded one last box of old letters and closed the lid. With it, I closed the door on everything I had been holding in. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about Daniel, how he was rebuilding, how strong he was becoming. I thought about Emily, alone in a strange town. I thought about Richard, still pretending to be the man he never really was. And then,
I thought about me.
about the woman who once believed silence was safety. The woman who now understood that grace is the loudest sound in a quiet room. And just before sleep pulled me under, I whispered one last line into the dark. Sometimes the best revenge isn't rage, it's grace. And silence. And watching them fall apart on their own. I didn't have to destroy them. They had already done that. All I did was let the truth in. But even now, even after all that had happened, something inside me knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The question was, what kind of life would I build from here? 1 year later, I no longer live in that house of ghosts. Now, I wake up to the sound of ocean waves brushing the shore outside my little home by the sea. The sun pours into my bedroom like honey. It feels like life itself whispers, "You made it through." My name is Olivia, and I survived the storm. Not just survived, I built something new from the ruins. After the divorce, I moved far away from the city, from the memories, from everything that once held me in place. I started an online business, one I named Starting Over. It's a quiet little space where women who've been betrayed, abandoned, or broken can come together and find strength. I help them write their stories, just like I wrote mine. I help them find their voices, the ones they were told to keep quiet. Because I know now, silence should never be forced. Silence should be chosen. And now my silence is peace. Daniel visits every month. He's in therapy now, slowly piecing himself back together. He tells me he finally understands that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means choosing yourself over bitterness. He says, "Mom, I'm proud of how you handled everything." That one sentence healed more in me than I can ever explain.
And Richard?
Well, life caught up to him. After the affair became public, thanks to the quiet little leaks I set in motion, his company's image collapsed. Investors pulled out. His board turned cold. And then came the audit. Turns out, hiding affairs with company money isn't just immoral. It's illegal. Now he's under investigation for tax fraud. Last I heard, he's living alone in a tiny apartment downtown. No more house on the hill. No more fancy watch collection. Just him and the echo of the lies he told. And Emily? She called once. I didn't answer. She messaged me. Long, tearful words, full of regret and empty promises. I blocked her. I later found out she's working at a diner in a small town 2 hours away. A far cry from the perfect life she thought she was winning. Funny, isn't it? They tried to destroy me with their secret. And now their whole world is falling apart without me even lifting a finger. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just watched. And now, as I sit on my porch, typing out the final lines of my latest blog post, I feel something I never thought I'd feel again. Pure, quiet joy. The kind that doesn't come from revenge or getting even. The kind that comes from knowing you survived and chose better. My fingers pause over the keyboard as I write the final sentence. I pretended to be broken. But the truth is, I was always in control. I hit publish. Then I lean back, close my eyes, and breathe in the salty air. The past doesn't haunt me anymore. It built me. And now, I am free.